would come to life almost instantly by pressing a single button in the cockpit.
Zero 01, clear right turn after departure, heading 340, climb flight level 180, squawk 1731, contact departures on 255.5.
The Lincolnshire bomber bases reached the highest degree of alert readiness in October 1962. As the Cuban Missile Crisis unfolded, the Valiant, Victor and Vulcan V bombers were armed and stood combat ready for a period of 3 days. Pilots and crew lived alongside their aircraft, poised for the alert klaxon, which fortunately never sounded.
01, clear takeoff, service wind 30020.
Clear takeoff, 01.
It should not be forgotten that the V-Force would have carried out the first strategic retaliatory strike on the enemy defenses, preceding the American SAC B-52s. The Vulcan B-2, with a wingspan of 111 feet, was 12 feet wider than the B-1, the extra size needed to accommodate the Blue Steel standoff nuclear weapon. The operated Olympus 200 series engines provided 18,000 pounds of static thrust each. '88 Vulcan B-2s were built for the RAF and were originally painted in a high-gloss white anti-radiation finish. In 1969, the role of Britain's nuclear deterrent was handed over to the Navy's Polaris submarine fleet. By the early 80s, the Vulcan was being phased out for replacement by the Tornado. Together with the other V bombers, it had valiantly defended the British Isles, but had now become obsolete and outmoded. Events in the South Atlantic, however, were to change that view. On the 1st of May 1982 at 10:50 p.m. local time, 2 Vulcans and 11 supporting Victor tankers took off from Ascension Island. The first sortie of Operation Blackbuck was underway. The target? Port Stanley Airfield. 3 days later, Captain John Reeve left the safety of Wide Awake Airfield to begin the second. The flight would take 16 hours, during which time the Vulcan would be refueled 5 times. This was to be the longest bombing mission ever mounted. After descending to 300 feet to avoid detection on enemy radar, Captain Reeve began a rapid climb to 16,000 feet. The attack had begun.
I would have felt frightened had we gone for a daylight raid. With a daylight raid, anybody who's got a gun can fire at you. With a nighttime raid, you're looking for technical electronic systems that can bring you down. We have the technology to combat those, and while the individual Argentinians, I've no doubt, were very brave and very competent pilots, I don't think they had the depth of technical expertise at sergeant, chief technician level to keep their kit right at the top line to make it work. Moreover, we had the advantage on the Vulcans. We were the first raid, and the first raid has always got the advantage of surprise. No, in all honesty, I thought our technology, old though it was going to be quite good enough to get through the defences of the Argentinians by night. By day, a different matter.
With bombing radar technology from the 50s and the known inaccuracies of the Vulcan system, the best chance of hitting the runway was to fly across it at an angle of 30 degrees and release the 21 1,000-pound bombs at quarter-second or 50-yard intervals.
When it came to the Falklands, there was no need to bomb from 40,000 feet. It was deemed, after a lot of thought, unwise to bomb from very low level, as that would put us within the range of Argentinian anti-aircraft fire. So we elected to bomb from 20,000 feet, and as we said at the time, we've spent the first 20 years bombing at high level, the next 20 years bombing at low level, and the one operational sortie we do, we bomb at the one height that no one had ever even considered in nearly 40 years of Vulcan flying would be relevant. It worked. One of the other considerations in picking the bombing height for the Falklands was the ballistic performance of the bombs. And there was some concern that if you dropped them from low level, there was a possibility with a low angle of graze that they would ricochet off the runway rather than actually penetrate and explode. Obviously dropping from 10, 15, 20,000 feet